Hi guys, welcome back to another episode where Mike and I go over your guys' topics, comments, and questions. Today we have a great topic. Before we get into it though, I have to do my usual. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. All comments help the algorithm and we really appreciate the support. Thanks again to all the new viewers. We really appreciate you guys coming in, stopping by. Enjoy it. But as Mike says, no shoes, no service. So with that, we can get into
Put
today.
your shirt on.
You got to put the shirt on, man. It's very important at this establishment. With that said, we can get into today's topic, which is another comment. It says, great episode as always, but elaborating on some trading rules in sync with your emotional intelligence advice would be more helpful. Thanks a ton. What do you got for me, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to turn this into a show of like looking at charts. That's a snooze, right? There's too much of that as it is. But I feel like, we kind of hinted upon it in the last Wednesday episode. We were talking about holding your winners overnight over the weekend to maximize your gains. Where's the emotional intelligence? Well, I start with the premise that everyone has a stated goal, right? That's super clear. They have it written all over their house in Post-it notes, and every action that they take is conjugated against that goal, right? They have that type of visionary clarity in what it is that they're doing. They're not winging it. They're not coasting going through life. Now, I say that with a wink, wink. Why? Because 95% of the people don't have a goal. They just want to trade. They think the goal is, I want to make money. The problem with that is that it's very sterile and flaccid. It doesn't really do anything to motivate. You can't get excited about that. So if you ask somebody from an allocation standpoint, why should I give you money? What is it that you do? You better have a clear answer and be able to say it right within one or two sentences. Because if you're hemming and hawing, is the first sign of weakness. And I don't think people have the clarity, in their actions and what they're doing, right? The fancy word is praxis, marrying your behavior with your belief system. Well, there's two sides to that equation. If your belief system is that your goals are vague, you're going to get vague results, right? You're probably going to go for the emotional wins and take small $100 losses on the E-mini. I mean, $100 gains on the E-mini, for example. So one thing that you could do, if your goal is actually to make money for the risk that you're willing to take, is affect, a trailing stop. And one way to look at that is, say you have whatever your R is. Say your R is $1,000. So you don't have to wait for the market to move X amount of percent. You can, but you can just say, look, I'm in a trade. I'm up 2R. My stop is at 1R. I don't know how frequently because I'm new. I don't know the numbers. You could do the amateur thing and take the small gain too quickly, right? And potentially watch the market move away from you. Or you can say, look, if I was putting the trade on here, I'd be willing to risk 1R. So I'm going to sit with the trade where I'm at. I have unrealized gains of 2R, and I'm going to risk 1R because that's what I'm comfortable risking when I get into a trade in the first place. Now, if it goes to 3R, you do the same thing. Now you move your stop up. You risk 1R. It's the easiest way to kind of align your emotional intelligence with your goal of making money. Because how do you make bigger money? Well, you get lucky and you have a takeover candidate in your portfolio. You get lucky and the Fed says we're cutting interest rates down by 100 basis points. Stock market can soar. Probably not going to happen. Or you can trade really, really too big intraday and try to hit a grand slam, which typically doesn't work. Again, if you have 20 years of experience, by all means. So trailing stops in that regard could be a good way to sync emotional intelligence with your behavior. But your behavior, again, it's not a rule, because you have to sync it with what your stated goal is. Again, I that's just how I operate. I very rarely wing anything. Like I need to have it tied into a goal. Otherwise, I feel like I'm wasting my time or I'm wasting my money or I'm wasting effort, which means work. And so I always try to think in life, it's time, money, and effort. What do I get out of this situation? What's the economic utility? It's the fancy expression for pleasure. What do I get out of it? How much return do I get for the risk? The risk of using my time, right? The risk of putting capital to work and risking capital. For us, obviously, we need liquidity, right? Because the difference between volume and liquidity, that's another emotional intelligence lesson that sometimes you have to learn the hard way, because volume is something that you see after the fact. It's not necessarily predictive. So you learn, again, that liquidity and volume are not necessarily equal. And so you have to temper that with your initial position sizing. Another third lesson could be, if you are afraid, you could just stop, right? If you're in so much fear about losing money, what I would typically do is just stop and try to make sense, because I might be bringing something in from somewhere else. Where does this happen a lot? Well, I get emails from people. I got an email from a guy who had like 20, 25K in the marketplace, and his goal was to pull out a few thousand every month with no trading experience. Now, I typically don't try to kill people's dreams, but to go from being an absolute rookie, and rookie could be someone with 3 years of experience who still hasn't found a way to make money, right? 3 years in the market of struggling is still rookiedom. But to go and to think like, well, it's not that much money. Well, it kind of is, because you came up with the goal. How'd you pick that number? It was probably meaningful for you, right? You didn't just pull it out of your ass. Where's the number coming from? And why would you think that if you had, 50K and you were going to try to take out, 10% a month and use that to pay your bills? I literally can look you straight in the eye and say, where's the camera? I've never seen that work. I've never seen it work in 35 years. Why? Because you're trading with scared money. All your fears about money come through in your trading when you're in that situation. So do not leave gainful employment and try to take a small amount of capital and think that it's going to be like clipping coupons off of a bond. And even if you're going to think you're going to sell options, because even at that standpoint, you're not going to grow your account. If you're going to make money and take it out all the time, you still have that very, very small capital base. So these are all emotional intelligence lessons. Some of them are directly related to trading rules. Others are directly related to the macro aspect of what you think about coming here. Now, look, someone's going to say, well, so-and-so did it. And I'd say maybe they did. But those folks who do make it are the folks who have a good feel. If you can't develop a feel for the market in a very short window of time, you have to pivot and find a new strategy, especially if you're doing the short-term stuff. It takes much more knack and feel to trade shorter term than it does to not necessarily buy and hold, but to swing trade or do intermediate, trend following, where you have a position on and you're going to let the market forces work for you, even though the thing might come up and down while you're in it. It should go up and down in an upward slope, right? So all these things have to be thought about, I think, before someone, even puts on the risk. It's the trading tactics are very easy to learn intellectually, but you have to be able to deploy them and do them on your own. Another emotional intelligence lesson. If you're a smaller trader and the account balance is underfunded, which in my mind's eye is under 25K, you could find yourself putting on trades and then watching the screen while they're on. So, not to be cranky grandpa here, but don't do that. Put the trades on, put your stops in, and then walk away. Because without any kind of experience, you're going to sit there and try to steer the trade and look into things. All of a sudden, you start losing money, and now fear and or anger could overcome you. Then what happens? You lift your stop and adjust it lower. Or it pulls back, right? So you're down, and then you add more to a losing trade, right? These are the things that happen more commonly than people know about, because they don't typically write about it on the internet. They only write about their winners. But this is the prevalent activity that happens in most short-term traders' accounts, is that they're too attached emotionally to the outcome of a trade. So they put the trade on, their leg starts going 1,000 miles an hour, and they're watching the market tick by tick. know what you're willing to lose, put in your protective stop. Best thing to do is walk away and not watch the market at that point.
Yeah, I mean, even from like a biological perspective, it just gives you too much stress. Like you shouldn't be having to worry about that. Like I mean, for some people, like I guess if you're like a pro and you've been doing it forever, it doesn't really mean anything. But like for the new guy with an underfunded account, like you were talking about, I feel like that just causes so much unnecessary stress. Like just sitting there and watching it and trying to manipulate it. Like it's to me, it just seems like kind of a pointless activity.
Look, I try to be the voice of reason here because I've seen everything. People have tried to sell me one of everything over 35 years. So I can absolutely, I know how to do the sniff test. I know most everything that you see on the internet that you think is going to help you around your trading is not really relevant, right? They talk to you about features, for example, but you learn the hard way that features aren't benefits, right? And so I admit it's not fair. It is not fair to the smaller person. They want to tell you that the markets are egalitarian. I think they are probably for investors because with $50 you can go buy a mutual fund or a fraction of a share of a blue chip company, which is probably what I would do. And then go back to what you did to get the money, work harder, and accumulate more cash so that you can make bigger investments. When we think about, and you could probably speak to this better than I can, on how humans evolved, there are things that happen in our body that you can feel that are primal about fight or flight. And trading is you putting yourself deliberately into a hostile environment where on some level you could say your life is on the line. You're putting yourself in danger because you have to manage a risk that you invited into your life on your own volition. I'm going to venture to guess that the majority of people who want to do that are not equipped to do that. They don't have what it takes. And it's not my fault. It's just how a person is built, right? So you think you can be born lucky like I was. I'm very lucky to be born with the mindset and the emotional makeup that I have. That's just damn luck. Straight up luck. You can't learn that from a book. You can condition yourself, but it's awfully difficult. It's awfully difficult to try to change your mindset because of how we're raised and how I think listen, unless your father's Paul Tudor Jones, chances are the financial literacy inside your household was probably bad. They don't teach it in school. They're teaching you efficient market. I learned efficient market hypothesis at Columbia. So how at some of the better schools on planet Earth, they're teaching you stuff that's dog shit and you're paying for it. The system isn't geared, but it's absolutely unfair because they say it's just like lottery. All you need is $1 and a dream. Well, that's great, but you're playing a game of negative expected value. And although somebody does win, the majority of the people that do play are funding the winner. And then the state gets to keep the difference. And you're taxed on it. So I feel like the stock market's the same type of a deal. Sure, you can start with $500 or $1,000 and trade contracts that are, $1 or $2 a point. That'll give you some experience. It might be worth, from a life experience standpoint, it might be worth doing. But the majority of people who do that are being marketed to, in my mind's eye, to be exploited or to be taken advantage of. You see? Now, I'm not an activist, but I would just say, there's too much marketing going on that tries to separate you from your money. They try to sell you things that you don't need.
Yeah.
They sell you on features like advanced charting packages and hotkeys, which you don't need. Maybe you don't have to pay for it, but again, it's a hook that's like, man, I saw it on TV. It's got to be true, right? And then the worst thing is if you had two people succeed at something, well, you're like, they can do it. But in this business, just because someone else can do it doesn't mean that you can do it.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that 80-something% of this is about psychology and emotional intelligence. You can understand it intellectually, I'll give you that. You could teach my trading style to a fourth grader. a 10-year-old. But at the end of the day, this is an unfair business because it's like, yeah, if you go to school and you study accounting, you pass the CPA test, you know what that lifestyle looks like. You've seen CPAs. It's certainly a clear path. You could say the same thing for medicine or getting, becoming a lawyer. It's very, predictable. Trading deals with a whole other sense of emotional intelligence. And understanding it intellectually is the easy part. But being able to do it is the harder part. But you never really see that. When are you going to see me on TV as a spokesperson for whatever the big broker-dealers are, where I'm like, you're your own worst enemy. Think twice before you do this. No one would put any money into the accounts. If they started out, hi, I'm Michael Martin for Thinkorswim, 95% of the people who try this lose more money than they ever goddamn dreamed of. So pardon my language, but, no one would put money in. So they have to show you people who are loving and smiling, and, they just had wild sex, as if that came from the trading.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like
or
those pharmaceutical commercials.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Like the people in a field frolicking with their dog, and then they go
They're
golfing.
just doing it froggy style in the grass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cialis, because the moment is now.
Right. Right.
It's so stupid. Like, you're thinking, like, who is this shithead copywriter that came up with that? Like, my God. So, and I'm sorry about that, folks, because I do feel at my stage in my career, I kind of am a spokesperson, but I also try to be a little Consumer Reports in that, try it. Don't let me be your dream killer. Just realize that the majority of people who try to do it fail. And the reason they fail is because they understand how to do it intellectually, but they don't know how to pull it off because of fight or flight. And again, the fear of overnight risk and all the things that, they seem like, well, my feelings are so real. Is this real or is it a dream? Like, and I know because I have friends who are in the short-term space. And again, some people can do it. The majority of folks can't. And so don't internalize that and turn yourself or feel like you're a failure. You're trying to do something that people aren't typically built for doing.
Right.
You have to have a special emotional makeup to be able to manage risk. I think you need to have a special emotional makeup to be a 9/11 operator. You need to have the same emotional makeup if you're an emergency room surgeon. It all takes a certain makeup, right, which speaks to who you are as a person. So you'll only know when you go and you try. But, there was another question. We're going to tie it in. I know who it's from. And, at the end of the day, I have bad habits. Why do I keep doing what I'm doing, basically? I identify errors and strive to change my behavior. Why does this happen? Well, because it's all coming from your subconscious. This is an example of being super bright, having a designation, understanding things intellectually at a high level. But we behave from an emotional standpoint. We don't act on our intellect. We behave from an emotional standpoint. That's why I said if you don't know who you are, like what's your emotional makeup, doesn't matter what you know. You can sit there and be the idiot savant and spout all those facts and be an encyclopedia of knowledge. But that person, even in today's day and age, is largely useless because you can just go to the internet and do a search and get all the answers that you need. You don't need to pay that person to sit there, certainly not a lot of money. So when you think about bad habits, you have to go back to the root. What's the source? Because there's a feeling. It's not about what you know. The person is highly educated, more than most. But when you know that much, you overthink things. Right? Could be. So again, it comes down to what's your emotional makeup? What environment did you grow up? How did you understand risk? What's your understanding of money? How do you value money?
Right.
These things you can't go on a TV and have a commercial about.
Nope. Wouldn't register for 99% of the people
watching.
It
would just give everybody a moment of pause, which is what they should have on their own if they were smart. Right? So let me really think about this. This is money. It's hard to earn a grub stake in the first place. But again, you're not going to know until you try. But I've changed my way of thinking. You have to understand, when I was starting out, I did have an income stream, so I could afford to keep making mistakes to really figure it out. I also am self-taught. I had no help, right? Nowadays, there are resources. So if you're not cooking with gas after 6 months, you have to pivot.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, at that point, you're acting out on something, in my opinion, or you're living in denial. Again, I'm not a psychologist, but and I think if you need a psychologist and you're a trader, it's time for a new career. Even if you're making a couple million a year, it's just not worth it. Life, when they say, I have lost a lot of friends the past couple of years, and I have people very close to me who, are very, very sick, and we have to remember we're mortal, and we do not have enough time on planet Earth together. And so every day you should be seeking enjoyment and pleasure, and it's just not worth the struggle. Yeah. It's just not worth the struggle. If you're not exceedingly successful at it, it makes no sense to do this and to tread water for years and years and years. Find something else to do. You can be a market enthusiast. You can be up on things and study things and learn all about it, but set your sights for something where you can really succeed. You deserve it. A person deserves it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you're talking about like, going to the root of a bad habit to kind of find out, why it's going on in the first place. And like, I think a lot of people really don't do that enough. It's actually kind of funny because in the finance world, in the gaming world, in a few of the highly cerebral worlds, people are actually using substances to kind of rebuild these reward mechanisms and circuits in the brain. And specifically, I'm talking about Adderall.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, especially in the trading world, they're just taking Adderall, because they think it makes them feel like zonked out and they can do more math, whatever, right? Like think at a higher level. But what people are actually starting to use it for now is rewiring reward circuits, which is a very interesting, perceived theory with the drug because it has to work with dopamine.
Yeah.
But, I think an even better way of doing that is, just going at it without substances in the first place and just trying to figure out, how you work, like, what makes you excited, what gets you up in the morning, figuring out where habits start is probably the most important thing, at least, for me as a competitor. If I have a bad habit, like in the game that I play, crouch spraying is a really bad habit. And, why is it a bad habit? Well, it's bad because it actually affects your aim negatively in this game, but I developed it from a completely different one where it's actually a benefit. Yeah. So I'm still used to just, holding the gun down, just spraying 30 rounds into somebody and, holding crouch because it used to be a good thing, but now it's not. Well, how do I go and rewire that? To me, it's like unbind the crouch key. Just take it out of the equation. You can't do that for everybody and everything when it comes to a reward circuit. But
so you were going to smurf your own peak.
Exactly. I'm smurfing my own peak. I'm taking out that crouch button. I don't need it. But that's what I would do. I would take out the thing from the equation, the thing that's, causing you problems in the first place that starts the bad habit. Rather than having to take a substance to build a new reward circuit to get rid of the old one.
100% agree. 100% agree.
People just don't do that enough. They don't think introspectively about, building a procedure for how these bad habits form. Or like I highly encourage you, for the viewers listening, if you have a bad habit that you want to get rid of, literally write it down. Write every step down of that bad habit to the outcome. So the start to the outcome. And then break that down and see at which point does it become a problem. Because not all bad habits are necessarily a problem, but they can be if you let all the steps go on.
Yeah, there's a benefit to being overly analytical, but it might not work as for trading.
Right.
Because so much of trading is having instincts. And I know friends, I know people who sell trading rules. And again, you can understand that has expected value. You could understand the entry criteria, right? You could understand position sizing, but then you have to be able to pull it off. And that's where there's a big separation between what people know and what they do. So it's not like they're deliberately trying to talk shit, but they don't marry their belief with their behavior.
Right.
Now, I'm not an infomercial. I'm probably the worst marketer on the internet. And these shows are meant to help people and to give away as much for free as possible. But now you understand why, like some of the consulting stuff that I do is so expensive, is it's time intensive.
Yeah.
I have to spend 4 or 5 hours behind the scene to help customize for somebody for every hour that we would spend on the phone. That's the only way I can guarantee the results. So I'm not doing it for free. Unfortunately, you know, it's if it's important to you, you get what you pay for. But it's hard. It's, you know, what is it? You know, the our program's 12 weeks. That is 9 months, and it's said now what 66 days to change a habit or to
Yeah.
get rid of a bad habit. Is it 60 or 66?
It's
like,
somewhere around there. People argue about it.
yeah, but it's not. It was shorter, and now they've realized that
Yeah.
it's a longer period of time. So you can imagine if someone comes to the table and says and they say I'm struggling, it takes a while, you know, to get into that, because that's true whether a person's a psychologist or whether they do consulting like I do, or if they want to learn, if the person wants to learn and do it themselves. You have to be brutally honest, and I think people would rather stick in a bad situation and muddle through, thinking that some undefined day in the future things are going to work out, than to say, I tried this, I failed, I got to move on. Especially with guys. Women are much better, it seems, with their emotional intelligence. Guys, they just want to hang on. They want to be part of the crowd. And, you know, it costs them a lot of money. It costs them a lot of quality of life. And I just think, looking back, I was very, very lucky in many ways. I was born with the right mindset. I was born with the right, you know, the emotional makeup. And thank God I had good parents and a strong work ethic and persistence and determination. And I was in the right place at the right time for that to work out. And so I'm very grateful for that. But now it would be very unethical and I wouldn't have any integrity if I kind of came on the TV and said, if you just did my 3 steps in this system for $97 a month or something like that, that you can make it. That would be a bold-faced lie. Would be a bold-faced lie. And I don't want to do that. I want to talk straight with people and say it is possible, but for the majority of people, it's just not probable. It's because we're humans and we're not really built for the types of endeavors that trading takes. Again, when people say you can learn how to trade, you can. Everyone can. That's the intellectual side. It doesn't mean you could do it. You see?
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of, and this happens in every field, right? I have friends who are super bright. They were at the College of Physicians and Surgeons. They're like, I want to be a surgeon. I'm like, all right. You know what the body smells like when you cut it open? You're going to fucking find out.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know what? I think I want to be on the faculty.
Right.
You know, because knowing surgery and then doing surgery, again, there's practicality to it. So you won't know until you try, but then set a time frame. Again, someone asked about, can you give us a trading rule with some emotional intelligence? Give yourself 6 months. If you can't figure it out, maybe part of you doesn't want to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's safer for you to just be small timer because you're afraid to make more money. Maybe abundance is too much for you. Or maybe the risk that you need to take in order to get the abundance that you want, you just don't have that in you, and you know you're not going to. So that's going to be hard to make money as a trader. Again, you can tinker by all means and be an enthusiast. But have a clear goal and be absolutely honest with yourself in knowing, why do you do what you do? What emotional needs are being met? And the clearer you can get on that is the single most important thing that I think you can do if you're trying to learn how to trade and want to do it. Is be very, very honest with yourself emotionally. Remember the scene for The Departed? Do you want to be a cop or do you want to look like a cop?
Yeah.
It's that kind of conversation that you have with yourself. And what does Mark Wahlberg say? You're an astronaut. You're not a cop.
Right.
And that whole conversation, which was a great scene in the movie. Whoa, 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 whoa. How do you know? Remember that scene? It was really good.
Barely, yeah. I do remember it, though.
He was talking about being, working undercover. And Martin Sheen says, we deal with deception here, but not self-deception.
Right.
I mean, that's a good little lesson to go watch if you want to be a trader.
Yeah.
Because it's not about necessarily knowing things. It's being able to execute. I know guys that are dumb as the damn doorknob right here. It's stupid. They're just complete jackasses. But they have laser vision, and they know what they do. They follow one rule, and they trade that thing, and they make really high rates of return. Because they have that ability to isolate the one thing that they know works. They follow that day after day. They stick with it. And they don't take the losses personally. The money to them, they're not emotionally attached to the money. It's necessary to do, it's necessary to trade.
Yeah.
But in order to accumulate more money, you have to invite the risk. You will accumulate more money the more risk you take. I don't mean reckless risks either. I mean good risks. Staying in winning trades, taking winners home overnight, taking them home over the weekend. As far as I know, when I look at Market Wizards, not one of those guys was day trading stock index futures. They built positions and held on. You know, again, handful of people can do it, but give yourself, like I said, if you're not showing consistent results in 6 months, a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time.
Yeah, you can do a lot in 6 months.
Cover a lot of ground.
You get jacked in 6 months.
Dude, I'm taking anabolic steroids because I want to look. So just to sum everything up here, you know, we talked about emotional intelligence and syncing that up with your trading rules. You can really sync it up with your overall behavior and give yourself a time frame and say, I need to hit this goal and I need to hit it within a certain period of time. And if I don't do that, it's time to move on. Now, that might mean stopping trading altogether and focusing on investing. You might think about real estate, or you could think about staying in trading and extending your holding period to put the odds more in your favor. But you need to have integrity with yourself. Don't deceive yourself. We don't have enough time on planet Earth to spend with one another, and your life should be spent seeking joy. And if you're not succeeding at something, it doesn't mean that you're a loser, right? And I wrote about this in the book. Quitters end up having more equity because they're not sitting there going through the grind. They're not missing other opportunities. You know what I mean? So I just think someone needs to have a frank conversation about the success rates in this business, which are dismally poor. And you owe it to yourself to pivot. If you're struggling and you can't figure it out, you either get a coach or you move on.
Yeah.
Because you don't have time to piss away to figure out something that you're not figuring out, right? Where do you think the realization is going to come from? Studying more charts? It's not intellectual. If you're failing, it's largely psychological and emotional. So anyway, like I said, I'm lucky and I'm super grateful. But I have to have integrity with myself when I answer these questions and be like, yeah, man, just stick with it. You'll figure it out. That's not the case. It's not the case here. It's a very different industry from other professions. A very, very different one. But anyway, thanks everybody for being here. I really appreciate these questions. You know, please take it with try to think about where it is that I'm coming from, as I'm just trying to give you some straight talk in a loving way about what I see and what it took, what I witnessed in other people. You know, the folks that I saw make it in trading didn't make it because of their intellectual prowess.
Right.
They all have the same emotional makeup. They're almost like similar people with different names and different ages. So, anyway, straight talk.
Yeah.
Hope everyone appreciates it.
Yeah, no, I think it was a good point. I think it's also a good place to wrap up. Thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate all the support. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. All comments help the algorithm, and I will see you guys in the next one.
Take care, everyone. Okay, everybody, thanks for being here. Please take a minute, like and subscribe to the show. You could also leave a comment. I don't have all the answers, so it's good to get some feedback. Also, if you would like to support the show, check out the links below. You can get the free audiobook of The Inner Voice of Trading, and also information about the course that I teach with Victor Sperandio. Thanks for being here, folks. I'll see you tomorrow.